Hello everybody, this is Yoko's Anime Reactions, and oh my god, they gave us a taste, and now I want so much more of this show. This is gonna be my review for Dr. Stone, the special episode Ryusi. Whatever. So now, they are trying to make their ship, and they're gonna need a captain. Somebody who knows how to drive, how to steer one of these freaking things. Not like a regular, yacht that we're used to, but an actual old-fashioned pirate-looking ship, essentially, is the idea behind it. And they get the reporter lady who was helping Tsukasa to help them find somebody with that kind of skill. And they had to where a nautical university used to be, and they dig up a bunch of people. And she ends up seeing someone that she would rather not bring back. Ryusi. And she said the reason for this is that apparently this guy is a rich person. His family runs the essentially the group that's funding the university, and he would go all over and essentially just travel on ships and just act like he's some big shot, essentially. And while she's mentioning all this, Senku is just being Senku. He just poured the revival fluid on the guy, not even caring that his personality might not be the best, but as long as he has the skills that they need, he doesn't care. And as soon as this guy wakes up, he realizes what the heck's going on. And from the way he's talking, it seems like he does know a thing or two about what he's doing when it comes to ships and everything. Which is good, because that is essentially what they need. However, they're going to have to find fuel for this ship, because apparently they're trying to make a motorized engine to go into this big thing. Which is probably for the best, since you'd want to do that instead of the old-fashioned way that these ships got around, which was oars. People sitting in the bottom and using oars to row the ship. And you really don't want that. So, the only thing that they're going for fuel-wise is oil. And even Gen is like, where the frick are we even going to get oil? Because all the oil rigs are gone, essentially. And even if there was one in Japan, how are we even going to find it? And so they end up sending Kohaku, Yuri, and Chrome to go find this thing. Turns out that due to the 3,700 year gap between modern civilization and now, apparently Mount Fuji has erupted at least a few times, if not possibly 10 at most. And because of this has drastically changed the area, the landscape, and everything, and thus their map is useless. And they relay all this to Senku, and he realizes that they need a new map. And how are they going to get a new map? Well, Suika had the idea. Well, why wish we could fly on birds? They'd be able to get a bird's eye view of the area, and he got the idea of a hot air balloon. I'm like, he's going to make a hot air balloon in this episode. I mean, they've made some crazy things, but it has at least taken a few episodes. Quite a few episodes, I think, for the antibiotic at first. Well, then again, that was the first invention they made. Of course it's going to take a little longer in order to make it. And they get Yuzuriha and the others to work on making the fabric to make the actual balloon part while they make the basket part. And I found it hilarious that Yuzuriha was like, I need a loom. And Senku just pops one out like it's no big deal. Like, oh, we had this sitting around. You can use this. I'm like, Jesus, man, this thing looks complicated. How the heck did you make it in such a short amount of time? And thus, oh, as well, they also came up with a currency, or rather, Ryushi did. The drachma, which I'm guessing is supposed to be kind of similar to yen. I don't know what the currency rate would be for this. I don't know what they're basing it on, essentially. But essentially, he agreed to help them in all this if he got the rights to the oil field once they dug it up. I'm like, alright. And thus, he's charging people, and they end up selling a bunch of stuff in order to be able to get the money that they need to get the oil. Because they're going to need a lot of money to be able to get at the oil that he's selling. Because he's charging people up the wazoo for this stuff. Well, when they're making the cloth for the balloon portion of the hot air balloon, they end up running across some that they made that isn't as airtight as it needs to be. It's more breathable. And Gen had the insanely fantastic idea, why don't we use that cloth to make something else? You know what they made? They made modern clothes out of hemp. What the fuck? And they had a fashion show to showcase all these new clothes, and they look modern. They look like modern clothes. I'm like, why can't we try this in real life and see how well that goes? Because if they could actually do that, then we wouldn't technically have to use, like, cotton and stuff. We could use hemp to make clothes. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. This show is insane. And I love it. I love every minute of it. Anyway, they end up making their own Senku department store to sell these new clothes. And obviously they're a little more expensive, but I mean, to make all this stuff, of course it's going to be a little bit more expensive. And I think, to be completely honest, I think Senku and Ryushi are getting along quite well. Which is good. And, they end up making the hot air balloon, obviously. And they have to figure out who's going to test drive this thing. Because they need to test it. Oh, I forgot to, kind of questioning something. They ran out of miracle fluid because Homura ended up blowing up the cave in the last season. Why are there no other caves in the area that have a ton of bats in them? Hello? Bats aren't that rare in this world, I'm guessing. So where the heck? Why can't they find another cave? Hello? Anyway, they end up letting the others know about what they're planning because the others are apparent. I didn't even realize this at the time when I was watching it, but they are at Ichigami Village. So they went back to the village on their way to where they had to go to get the oil, but they had to obviously make a pit stop because they don't know where they're going at this point. And when the Chrome hears about this whole flying machine thing, he is freaking the fuck out, and he races back to where the others are, running the entire way there because he wants to see it for himself. And obviously Senku is going to be part of who's going on this little test run, and it has to be 3 people. And they try and get Ryushi to do it because, you know, he's not only... This whole sailing thing also pertains to dealing with the wind as well, so he's probably their best bet. But as for the third person, they were trying to leave it up to chance, and I'm like, okay. And then Chrome rushes up, saying, I want to go. So it ends up being Senku, Ryushi, and Chrome going on this. And so far, as they're testing it, it seems to be working really well. However, they realize they're not going as high as they need to, and they don't really know why. But then they end up seeing a gigantic storm heading their way because they were trying to use the rotation of the wind to kind of slingshot themselves around because they have to go in a certain direction, but the wind has been blowing in the opposite direction. And they realize that the balloon popped at the top. It got tore at the top because of the stupid birds. And they end up using the last of their fuel, or not last of their fuel, the last of the kindling, the charcoaler, I think that was what it was, to try and get an updraft going to where they could shoot out the top of the storm and get away from it. Senku decides to use that last bottle of the miracle fluid that they need to jumpstart this, because essentially it's essentially pure fuel. It's got alcohol in it, it's got the nitric acid in it. Essentially it would help, and it definitely does. And the blast knocks Senku out of the basket, and he's holding on for dear life on the side, and nobody thinks to grab him and pull him back in. Thankfully, they're able to get out, and they make it to Ishigami Village in 2 hours, whereas I think it took probably I'm guessing a day or two, for them to get there to where they're at right now from Ishigami Village before, with the the vehicle. So, yeah, this is definitely getting me hyped for Season 3. I want more of this show. I'm not a science person, but I just love this show. And I'm sure that many people will agree with me and say that they are excited, they are hyped for Season 3. That's supposed to be coming out next year. And Ryusuke doesn't have too bad of a personality, he's just greedy, obviously. But, yeah, he apparently has the skills. He kind of meshes with Senku really well, to be completely honest. But, yeah, this is definitely getting me even more hyped for Season 3 than I already was. And I was already hyped for Season 3. So, I will get this uploaded, and if you guys are even more excited than I am for Season 3, and you have not subscribed, subscribe. Because when Season 3 comes out in the dub, you can bet your booty I will be reacting to it. So be excited for that. Get excited for Season 3.